And we are in John chapter 18, coming to the end of the chapter now. We are in the last 8 verses from verse 33 to 40. Before we look at the passage, just want to review our context, where we are. We've been in John for quite a long time now. I think it was over a year ago that we looked at chapter 1, the prologue and the commentary that John gives us. And he's introducing us to the topics and themes that he's going to cover. He knows where he's going, and authors don't always clue us in ahead of time, but John does. And so I want to go ahead and read this for us again this morning as a foundation to remind us where we started, where we're coming from. So John chapter 1, the first 18 verses. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was with God in the beginning. Through him all things were made. Without him nothing was made that has been made. In him was life, and that life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, but the darkness has not understood it. There came a man who was sent from God. His name was John. He came as a witness to testify concerning that light, so that through him all men might believe. He himself was not the light. He came only as a witness to the light. The true light that gives light to every man was coming into the world. He was in the world, and though the world was made through him, the world did not recognize him. He came to that which was his own, but his own did not receive him. Yet to all who received him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. Children born not of natural descent, nor of human decision or a husband's will, but born of God. The Word became flesh and made his dwelling among us. We have seen his glory, the glory of the one and only, who came from the Father, full of grace and truth. John testifies concerning him. He cries out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, 'He who comes after me has surpassed me, because he was before me.' From the fullness of his grace, we have all received one blessing after another. For the law was given through Moses, grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God, but God, the one and only, who is at the Father's side, has made him known." So that's how John introduced things to us. Then he goes on and starts telling the story of Jesus' life. Various narratives, and he picks things out here and there, chooses the ones that he wants for his purpose. And he does that for several chapters. And then he goes in, once they get into the upper room, there's a lot of discourse that follows that. John has, other Gospels have some discourse, but John seems to have a lot more than the others. And we just finished that up not too long ago with the high priestly prayer. And then we go back in chapter 18, where we are now, into the narrative story form as he tells us what happens after they leave the upper room. So this is the section we're in now. In chapters 18 and 19, we have Jesus' arrest and trial. The middle of 19, then the crucifixion and his burial. And that's followed by his resurrection and the appearances to many different people. Right at the end, John wraps it right up with a closing in two verses in 21, 24, and 25. And also, he's kind of given us a clue as to where he's been going the whole time in chapter 20, verses 31 and 32. And we're going to take a quick look at those in a moment as well. So we are right now in this arrest and trial phase. So that's where we are in John. Now let's drill in a little bit deeper to the immediate context. Look at chapters 18 and 19 specifically. We saw Jesus arrested in the first 11 verses. Then he is taken to Annas. And we kind of have two parallel stories going on here. We have Peter in one location denying the Lord 3 times while Jesus is in with the high priest. Then last week we saw him taken to Pilate, and he's with Pilate now through chapter 19, verse 16. Last week the Jews brought their charges against him. This week we'll be looking as Pilate examines Jesus. And then next week we'll see as Pilate comes to the sentence of Jesus, so that through chapter 19 then comes his crucifixion and his burial. So let me read the passage for today now, John chapter 18, verses 33 to 40. Again, I will invite you to just listen. I'm not this type of person. I like to sit there and look at my Bible and see how my translation differs from the translation that's being read. But I'm going to invite you to just listen to the words, let them penetrate into your soul and down into your heart. Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" "Is that your idea?" Jesus asked. "Or did others talk to you about me?" "Am I a Jew?" Pilate replied. "It was your people and your chief priests who handed you over to me. What is it you have done?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my servants would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. But now my kingdom is from another place." "You are a king then," said Pilate. Jesus answered, "You are right in saying I am a king. In fact, for this reason I was born, and for this I came into the world, to testify to the truth. Everyone on the side of truth listens to me." "What is truth?" Pilate asked. With this, he went out again to the Jews and said, "I find no basis for a charge against him. But it is your custom for me to release to you one prisoner at the time of the Passover. Do you want me to release the king of the Jews?" They shouted back, "No, not him! Give us Barabbas!" Now Barabbas had taken part in a rebellion. How does it make you feel as you listen to that story? Find any emotions coming to the surface? Helplessness, okay. Unfairness, injustice, sadness. All right.
Feels like kind of sort of detached, but I don't feel unfairness because he declared, as we just read, I find no guilt in him. That was the correct judgment by the former governor.
Okay, and yet he doesn't release him.
Yes. So in that there's
So there's a feeling of unsettledness here, isn't there?
or signs of betrayal from the crowd.
Okay. The crowd that he's been preaching to, that he's been loving, that he's been healing, and they're betraying him. Okay, let's look at some observations. You can open your Bibles now and look back at the passage. Let's look at the characters. What kind of characters do we have in this passage? First character is in the first verse, in the first word, at least in my translation. Pilate. These ones are pretty obvious. Okay, we have Pilate, the Roman governor. Who else? Jesus is normally going to, and we have the crowd, the Jews. Okay. One other. Barabbas is there, of course. And within the Jews, Pilate mentions specifically the chief priests. So they're kind of singled out there as well with the rest of the Jews.
Jesus' servant. Then he says that you could call her the
Oh, okay, yes, right. Jesus' servant. She is not mentioned here in this passage.
But this passage is where Pilate's wife plays a role.
Well, she doesn't in John's gospel because John doesn't tell us about her.
But nevertheless, she plays an important
Right.
role in this passage.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go on to locations. What locations does this occur at?
Praetorium.
We're in the palace or the praetorium at the beginning.
Inside
Then-
and outside.
Is there any movement? Yes, there's inside and outside. So at the beginning, he goes inside. He goes back into the palace and summons Jesus to talk to him, and then he comes back outside. There's one other location that's mentioned, although it's not actually part of the narrative. And that other place is just called another place. That's in verse 36 when Jesus says that his kingdom is from another place. So that's just kind of on the side there. What repeated words or ideas do you see coming through here? You got the king and the kingdom very clearly. That starts right at the beginning. Truth is repeated a number of times. Okay, he's giving a purpose, a reason.
The word Jew is repeated.
Okay, the Jews. It's interesting how many times that keeps coming up. John's not letting us forget that the Jews are part of this, even as just Jesus and Pilate are talking inside. Yeah, we have truth. And we have a lot of dialogue words. He asked, he replied, he said, he answered. So there's something about this dialogue that's important to John's purpose. So the themes come out of some of those repeated words, obviously the kingdom and the truth. Any other themes, even thinking back through the book? What themes are being continued on through this passage? The world is mentioned, yes?
Hearing his voice.
What's that?
Hearing his voice.
Okay, listening to the word.
Jesus tells the reason this is going on.
Okay, there's a purpose here.
I think there's an issue of testimony when he asked Pilate, how did you hear about this? So it's kind of getting at what's the evidence, what's the testimony brought to Pilate?
Yes. So we're going to come back to that as well. And so Jesus is also showing his identity as king. And perhaps we can see a little bit of judgment in here as well. And I wonder if there isn't a little bit of an authority struggle going on we'll maybe delve into that just a little bit in a few minutes as well. What about contrasts?
Different types of, I'm going to say, service. Some servants go in one, or act in one way. Jesus' servants do not.
Okay, all right. So he's making a distinction, a contrast between how servants would act to the king. Okay.
Contrast between the sinless man and the man who led a rebellion.
Okay. Yes, a big contrast there right at the end.
Kingdom of this world.
Right, the kingdom of this world versus the kingdom from another place.
Not the one who thinks he's in control, but really isn't. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
How about the crowd, in contrast from like Palm Sunday? Right?
Okay, yeah, just looking back at the context. It wasn't very long ago that the crowd was, "Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord."
Those inside and those outside.
We have the in and out. Yeah, that's a very definite contrast there.
The fault finders and those, and the one who didn't find any fault.
Mm-hmm.
What do you do?
Okay, fault versus faultless. What was this over here?
Romans versus Jews, the Pilate's from.
Okay, yep, the Romans and the Jews, or Jews and Gentiles. Well,
The people choose and they speak to it like us.
okay, King of Jews and Barabbas, the contrast between a criminal and a king. I mean, the king's at the top, the criminal's at the bottom, right? All right, that's a big contrast.
The truth versus the vague charges that Pilate didn't even understand.
Okay,
He said, "What have you done?"
so he's showing what kind of charges are coming and what kind of charges they should be, right? Okay, I heard a couple other things, I think.
Those who are of the truth and
Okay, those that's implied. If he says everyone on the side of truth listens to me, that implies that there are those who are not on the side of truth.
It's not clear in this narrative, but it's interesting the repartee between Pilate and Jesus. Jesus is bound and he's been beaten, and Pilate is standing free and he's in charge.
Okay, all right. Freedom versus being bound.
there's a revolt going on, two revolts. One is the revolt of Barabbas, and the other is a revolt of Jesus towards the establishment of the Pharisees.
Okay, so that's more of a comparison. Well, it's a contrast because of where it goes. Yeah. But I should have probably put comparisons and contrasts on here so that we could look at those. What surprises you about this passage? If you didn't know what was coming and you're reading this the first time, what kind of surprises are there?
That the people would cry, not him but Barabbas.
Yeah. I mean, we thought the people were just a few days ago behind him. 100%. What happened here?
Jews handing over another Jew.
Okay. Why would a Jew, the Jews were enemies with the Romans, so now they're going to hand one of their own over to the Romans? That Jesus doesn't really defend himself. He doesn't actually answer the questions that Pilate is asking, does he? Which is very typical for Jesus. He doesn't answer the question you ask, he answers the question you should have asked. Yes.
Pilate, as you pointed out, asks him in verse 33, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus in verse 36 did answer that question in a manner which shows Jesus' innocence of being a competitor with Caesar.
Okay. is kind of a cryptic answer there. But yeah, and one of the surprises is John actually hasn't used this phrase, King of the Jews, before. Pilate is the first one to ask, are you the King of the Jews? Jesus has been called the King of Israel by Nathanael back in chapter 1, and then also in the triumphal entry, they call him the King of Israel. And but this phrase, King of the Jews, this is the first time this comes up, and it comes out of Pilate's mouth. Are you the King of the Jews?
Could you clarify what portion of the Jews we're speaking of? Because the apostles were Jews. On Palm Sunday, the masses who were aware of Jesus raising of Lazarus were giving witness to Jesus. That set of Jews were praising Jesus. I have a hard time.
Right.
I have a hard time believing that this is the same group of Jews, especially because 18 verse 3 identifies the Jews, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, officers from the chief priests and the Pharisees. And those are the same officers in verse 12. So is it accurate to say that this is a subset of Jews who were involved on this occasion, as opposed to the Jews who were waving palm fronds on Palm Sunday?
Okay, that's a thought that I haven't wrestled with to this point. Obviously, the term the Jews does not mean every Jew. You know, it's a general term, meaning these people that were here are Jews. John does not make a real strong distinction here. So there's seems to be some back and forth, perhaps change of mind of some of the people. They're acting like a mob, and mobs just kind of, you hear about people getting into groups and all of a sudden just finding themselves changed. My son at one point out in Los Angeles was going to a rally and all of a sudden found himself kind of among the wrong set of people and had to do a little maneuvering to get out of there. I think the distinction that John is making here, though, is between Jews and Romans. And maybe we'll see that as we look down into it a little bit more here. Another surprise that I already mentioned, that Pilate offers the Jews a choice between Barabbas and Jesus, even though Jesus is innocent. I suspect that he thinks he's going to get himself out of this by just, we're just going to let him come back to you, and he is probably very surprised by the response of the crowd there. So let's look at some of these questions that are in the text itself. And we've talked a little bit about them. Are you the King of the Jews? Is he the King of the Jews? Is Jesus the King of the Jews? Yes, he is. But is he only the King of the Jews? He's the King of everyone. So it goes much beyond the question here again. So in one sense, if he said, yes, I'm the King of the Jews, he would be telling the truth, but not the whole truth. And of course, he wants to tell the whole truth. Jesus then responds with his own question. Is that your own idea? Or did someone else talk to you about me? What do you think the answer to that question is?
Somebody else. The chief priest.
The other Gospels indicate that the chief priests did come and give put that idea into his mind.
So wouldn't the Jews there then be the Jewish leaders?
Well, the Jewish leaders were definitely there, but I think the fact that he doesn't say the leaders is that there's probably more than just the leaders
But they
there.
stand for the people. And so in that time especially, the commoners, the mob, they'll do whatever their leaders say.
That is often the case, but also, do leaders always represent the people accurately?
No.
No, they don't.
Oh, that's why they let the crowd choose
So,
Jesus.
right. So, okay, if this is what our leaders have decided, Art, you can disagree, but let's not get into that deeply.
Refer you to John 12, verses 17 to 19.
Yeah, okay.
All to the Jews following Jesus, praising him, the Pharisees were concerned that this was happening. So the Jews were split. The common people at the Palm Sunday were at odds with the Pharisees and the chief priests. And that's why they were concerned.
Okay, so let's go back to this question that Jesus is asking Pilate. What is Jesus saying to Pilate? Is he asking this question to get information out of Pilate? Obviously not. So what is his purpose in asking the question to Pilate?
Did the Jews overhear his question?
This is inside the palace, so I don't think so.
Well, I think
Jesus has gone inside and he says he summoned Jesus. So now this is more of a private conversation.
it strikes me that this verse 34 is the same question the Spirit of God asks each of us, and it begs, where's your responsibility? Who do you say that I am? Who do you say that I am?
Okay, and what information are you depending upon? Do you have evidence, or are you acting just on hearsay? Have you really checked it out? Okay, Pilate asks Jesus, am I a Jew? Obviously not. I think there's obviously sarcasm here. Everybody knows that Pilate is not a Jew. What is Pilate saying as he asks Jesus, am I a Jew? I'm not one of you. If you're the king of the Jews, I'm not under you. So I see a little bit of an authority struggle going on here. I'm a Roman.
Say, this isn't my initiating, I'm just not a pawn, but, I was dragged into this, by your people.
True. Yes, he specifically says that. He says it was your people and your chief priest that brought you to me. But he's also saying, I'm in charge here. And other gospels make that clearer. Well, I think it's actually coming up in John's gospel when we get a little bit farther along here, that Pilate says, don't you know that I have the power to release you? Okay, what is it you have done? What has Jesus done?
Pushed back.
Pushed back against the religious system. Okay.
Well, he inaugurated his kingdom here.
He's inaugurating his kingdom.
He spoke the truth.
He spoke the truth. And that's the one that he's going to bring out to us in a moment. Going back all the way to chapter 1 and the themes that are coming through, Jesus created the world. He was there at the creation of the world. He created all of this that's all around us. He has come into the world, and he specifically states that here. This is what I came for. I came to testify to the truth. And so Pilate asks, what is truth? That's a question that our culture is asking today. Very relevant. What is truth? How do you define it? Pilate asked this question, what is truth, with truth standing right in front of him. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He did not say, I show the way, I speak the truth, and I give life. He said, I am the way. I am the truth. I am the life. God is all of these things, and Jesus is the representation. Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3 says the Son is the radiance of God's glory, the exact representation of his being. Truth is not a disembodied something out there in the world of philosophy. Truth is God himself, or truth is within God himself. Therefore, the words that God speaks must be true, because he is the truth. So,
Sneering when he says what is truth.
there's a debate about that. Is he really wanting to know what truth is, or is he again being sarcastic, saying, am I a Jew, or what is truth? He may have in his mind what many people today have in their minds. He's in a position of authority. He says, look at me, Jesus. I'm the truth here. I've got the authority, therefore I'm the truth. Right? Someone who's in authority does not get to do everything the way they decide to do it. That's, you have to do it as truth. Well, I heard someone once say to me, I am the authority here. Okay? No, you represent the authority. The authority that you have has come from God. You have limited authority in this situation. You are not allowed to act outside of the authority that you've been given. But Christ, of course, has all authority in heaven and on earth.
Pilate also asks that question and immediately walks away.
Right. Yeah, he doesn't even wait for the answer, does he?
But the question seems to be in response to Jesus using the word twice, that word truth in the prior verse. Jesus says, I have come into the world to bear witness to the truth. And then Jesus says, everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. So he's challenging Pilate himself. Do you hear my
Are you hearing my voice? Very good, yes.
And that's what triggers, Pilate's question doesn't come out of the blue. It's in response to Jesus twice using the word truth.
Yes, yeah, he wants a definition of what this is that Jesus is speaking about.
Pilate's tone, because this is the written word that doesn't
Right.
capture for us whether this was a sincere question or a disingenuous question. I don't think we know the answer to that. Maybe I'm wrong.
Right. I don't think we definitively know that.
This Al brought up later, which is out of context, but Pilate did have a wife who had bad dreams about him messing with Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read this, Pilate said to him, what is truth? I want to give Pilate the benefit of the doubt that he was really puzzled. Like his wife, who he trusts, is saying, don't do this, and he's caught.
Uh-huh.
He's caught politically, he's caught in power. And so he's kind of like, okay, what is truth? That's how I.
Okay. Well, we're getting short on time, so let's see if we can summarize what this passage is telling us. What is it that John is wanting us to see as he tells us this portion of the story? Art.
Well, that the presumably impartial Roman governor who had legal authority found Jesus not guilty of any offense against Rome, yet refused to release Jesus.
Okay? And that's a summary of the scene, or the scenes that we see them. I'll just jump up here to what I came up with. A literary summary would be that Pilate is confronted by the truth and the evil that opposes it. And maybe we could go on to say, and refuses to make a decision himself, tries to pass the decision off onto others. Theologically, we might say that Jesus is showing us that, or that John is showing us that Jesus is the true king over all of heaven and all of earth. So what does it mean for us? What does the passage reveal about Jesus? We've talked about it a little bit. Real quick, what does it reveal about Jesus?
What comes to my mind, I'm having a hard time putting it into words, but what comes to my mind is just the recurring theme of kind of the upside down kingdom, the upside down way of doing things. Right? Jesus could, as we've read in other gospels and other places, call legions of angels and various other things, but demonstrates and explains his kingdom and his, dare I say, way of doing things counter to the culture and the society then and even now.
Right. Because it comes from another place.
Jesus was not flustered by Pilate, the
That's a word I was trying to come up with earlier this morning, right?
completely calm and composed, and still spoke the truth that, he didn't refer to himself as a king. Like when Pilate said, so you're a king, he says, you say I'm a king. So he didn't, maybe because he's like, well, I'm not a king, I'm God, but he clearly states, I'm the head of a kingdom. So he's confident and composed in spite of all he's been through and what he's going through right then.
He is a king, but not the kind of king that Pilate is thinking of.
This is a little more implicit, but it's clear the contrast between temporal or earthly authority and power and Jesus' authority and power.
Yes.
So he's having this dialogue is ultimately about authority and power. Two seeming not quite peers, but they're seen as to be in charge of a group of people. So I think it's just revealing that he is both the source of earthly authority, but he is ultimately authority.
Right. Pilate is trying to show his authority. Jesus knows his authority. Joshua.
As readers, and perhaps even some others that may have been there, may be surprised at some of the goings on, but Jesus is not caught by surprise whatsoever, as Mary was talking about. He's calm and collected. There's nothing that catches him off guard or anything.
Is there anything else we can say that John intends for his readers to understand, especially looking ahead to John's purpose statement? But these are written that you may believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that by believing you may have life in his name. How does this passage help us to believe that Jesus is the Christ?
Well, Jesus, to testify to the truth, had to go to the cross, because the truth about us is that our sin is against God. I mean, Jesus' whole life was to testify to the truth. His death testifies to the truth.
And our sins are offenses against the truth, and they need to be atoned for. How does the whole Bible story inform our understanding of this passage. We're into this already. I'm just kind of focusing down a little bit more. Art.
So in the garden, Satan deceived Eve, which is the opposite of the truth.
Truth. And in the garden, God made a promise to Adam and Eve after they sinned that he was going to fix it. And we're coming right up to the fix here now. Paige.
Also, he voluntarily lays down his life. No one has the authority to take it from him. That's prophesied earlier. So now we're seeing that even before Pilate, Jesus could have defended himself, but he has authority over the.
He's in complete control of the situation. He can change anything he needs to at this point. And yet he knows the path that he's on.
That there's a kingdom, there's God's kingdom. And we see that throughout, and then of course in Revelation, that Jesus is the king of God's kingdom.
All right, so it focuses in on the kingdom where that's, I think we'd say looking to the future for us, the perfect kingdom. We have all these imperfect kingdoms around us, some better than others, but none of them perfect. And we can look forward to the true one. Well,
if you think like that, the only thing that comes to mind is everybody's gonna die. I don't know. Just keep thinking that everybody's gonna die. And then what?
It is appointed unto man once to die. And after that, to face judgment. And then what? Yes. It's not a dead end. It's not the end of all things. And so there's a goal and a purpose for us to have as we live our lives and as we make our decisions day by day. And that's my last question. How will this change the way that you live?
I was looking at the verse 36, and Jesus answered, "My kingdom is not of this world. If my kingdom were of this world, my servants would have been fighting. And I'm saying myself as a servant, and we are the one who don't fight for the word, for the truth. I think we have it, we have it, we show it, we live it, but we don't fight for it. And so, that's why I tell my children all the time, if you know that it's true, you don't fight for it, you just show it, it's true.
Right, don't back away from it. Put it out there and let the truth do its work. God is the one, he says, I will avenge, it is mine to avenge. And so he as the truth will go forward and accomplish what he desires through that. We'll keep this last question in your mind as you go through the day and through the week, and let's close in prayer. Father, we thank you for giving us your word, for directing through the pen of John these words to us. We pray that they would penetrate into our hearts and remain there, soften our hearts, teaching us to be servants of yours and to have the attitude of a servant for your kingdom. And may that show forth, may the truth shine forth from our lives as we go about our lives this week. In Jesus' name, amen.